Good afternoon and welcome to our webinar this afternoon entitled Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 and Why You Need It. My name is Gurdip Sohal. I'm the Sales Director at Kavenka 365 and will be your host for today's session. I'll be joined by my colleagues Dave Collins, Senior Systems Engineer at Kavenka 365, along with Nick Fennell, Cloud Systems Engineer at Veeam. The agenda today, if I could have the next slide, please. The agenda today is essentially providing you with an overview of who Kavenka 365 are, why you need backup for Microsoft 365, some of the reasons behind that. We'll take a look at the Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 technology stack and the feature sets within it, and also then look at the services that are provided by Kavenka 365 for Microsoft backup, essentially, and also look at some of the licensing involved with that. If I can have the next slide, please. So just prior to me starting with the introduction to Kavenka, for those who don't know us, you will have an opportunity to ask questions towards the end of the session. So if you have questions and you think of anything, please feel free to use your Zoom taskbar to ask any questions that you want to, and we will address those questions at the end of the session, just to for the sake of continuity of the presentations. Yeah, please feel free to ask as many questions as you can. Right, so for those of you who are new to Kavenka, I see through the attendees list that we've got a number of customers on the line, so welcome to all of the customers for today's session. But for those who aren't customers, I just wanted to provide a brief overview of who we are and what we do. So we essentially are specialists in data protection, availability, data security and business continuity. The data protection part of the business focuses around backup and how you protect your data. Availability is really centered around disaster recovery and how we recover data. Security is really the cyber security aspects of our services offerings and how we protect the front end of your environments and the bad things coming into your environments. And then the business continuity aspect is a wider aspect of business continuity, not just the IT disaster recovery, but also how customers can put plans in place to mitigate against risks and understand how risks impact the business. We have a very strong heritage in the provision of data protection and IT disaster recovery services. We were formed back in 2002, so this year in September we'll be 20 years old as a business. So there's a huge amount of experience within the business through our technical teams, through our commercial teams, through our service delivery teams, we're in the business of building long-term working relationships with our customers, and hopefully you'll see the value of that come through the presentations today. We're ISO 27001 accredited as a business, which is obviously very important when it comes to protecting your data, and also 9001 accredited for delivering quality-based services to our customers. Next slide, please. Okay, so just wanted to sort of provide some detail and depth around our relationship with Veeam. We are a Veeam cloud services provider and a Veeam reseller. We hold a platinum status for cloud service provider and gold status for reseller. But we also are recognized by Veeam as being highly competent in the areas of disaster recovery as a service, offsite backup services, which is essentially, cloud-based backup, as well as backup for should be Microsoft Office 365, and really that's the subject of topic today. We'll discuss that in a little bit more detail later on during the session. Next slide, please. So again, just to give you an idea of our heritage of working with Veeam, we started working with Veeam back in 2010, working with the then version 6 of the product, and really at that stage Veeam were very much focused around protecting virtual server estates, in particular VMware. We designed a number of bespoke backup and DR solutions for Veeam customers. Version 7 was released around 2012, where they introduced the addition of the Hyper-V platform. So current day, we provide services and support around VMware and Hyper-V in terms of supporting Veeam customers. In 2014, version 8 was being released in beta. We were invited to beta test version 8 and also invited into what was then known as a service provider program, which Veeam piloted in the UK, and they picked 3 service providers or companies to work with, and we were one of those 3. And really, they picked us based on our heritage and experience within disaster recovery, because that was the very early seeds of what is the current day Cloud Connect, replication, cloud-based backup and DR services that Veeam customers can enjoy through the service provider program. In 2017, version 9, physical workloads, so physical servers, workstation support was introduced by Veeam, and that's just got stronger and stronger. 2018, version 9, the DR orchestration tool sets were introduced, and we work with a number of customers to orchestrate their whole DR strategy, DR plans, and recovering servers. 2020 version 10 capacity tier, the ability to be able to send your data to an immutable store was introduced, and NAS file share backups, all of the things that traditionally Veeam had struggled to provide solutions for, they started to add, and we've been working with them as a very close partner to support clients in that area. Last year, 2021, version 11 was introduced, and continuous data protection was added to the stack, so you can have real-time backup of your data across to a secondary site. They also introduced the concept of the Linux hardened repository, providing local immutability for your backups, and Kavenka have been very instrumental in helping a number of customers implement that type of solution to protect their data locally. And here we are in 2022, version 12 is on the horizon, and there's a lot more innovation and features to come in version 12, which we'll hold a separate session on as we get closer to the release date for that. Next slide, please. So today we offer a range of different Veeam powered cloud services. This is using Veeam as the underlying technology, but we deliver the services through our own cloud across our 2 data centers. And that's Veeam Cloud Connect, which essentially is an offsite backup solution for your day-to-day servers for offsite backup. We offer DR as a service for the recovery of those environments, should you need that recovery capability. We offer offsite backups, so through the offsite Cloud Connect backup copy on disk, we can take an offline copy to tape. One of the most commonly asked questions we get today from customers who are renewing cyber insurances: can you provide us with an offline backup, which is truly offline? And yes, we can do that because we have a tape out service that addresses that issue. But if you wanted belt and braces, or you didn't want to go tape and you wanted an offline copy of data, we can offer you immutable storage. We have an S3 compatible storage solution where you're not charged egress and ingress charges, but you benefit from the immutability object lock feature set that we offer. And then of course today's subject matter, which is backup for Microsoft 365, and again we'll go into a little bit more detail about that through Dave Collins later in the presentation. Next slide, please. Okay, so I'm conscious I didn't want to take up too much time on this presentation, so I'd like to hand over to my colleague from Veeam, Nick Fennell, Cloud Systems Engineer, who will talk you through the Veeam Office 365 or Microsoft 365 stack. Thank you.
That's great. Thanks very much for that, Gerdip, and a great summary of where Veeam have been over the last 15 years, our growth from that single product all them many years ago to the fabulous service catalog that you provide through being a cloud service provider. A little bit about myself. So yes, as Gerdip said, I'm Senior Cloud Systems Engineer in the UK, support the cloud service providers, of which Kavenka is one of a select few platinum partners, as mentioned already, which I have the pleasure to work with day in and day out. So we just move on and we'll cover the topic of today. So why 365 on Microsoft 365? Again, its name has recently changed. Effectively, the choice has been made. Organizations have chosen Microsoft 365 as the de facto platform for internal and across organization collaboration. Enables enterprises to work anywhere at any time without needing to host your own systems. And they'll hold your files, emails, and content management, as you are aware, in this platform provided by themselves. This service doesn't replace your responsibility to maintain backup of your business critical data. And this is going to be a topic I'm going to touch on 2 or 3 times, so forgive me for repeating myself, but this is the aim of the today's session, actually, to emphasize about what is and what is not covered and protected. So why would you choose Veeam? So Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 eliminates the risk of losing access and control of your data. So that's Exchange Online, SharePoint, OneDrive for Business, and Microsoft Teams. Your data is always protected, always accessible, and we work with Microsoft and not against them. We enhance and augment the protection in areas that Microsoft is not their primary focus. So partnering with Kavenko, as I said already, allows them to enhance this service and deliver it as a all-wrapped service to you, giving full data recovery and data protection. Just move on. So there's an awful lot on this page, so I'm going to briefly cover the main points. So accidental deletion. People make mistakes, and when they do, that data needs to be recoverable. Users may be deleted as part of an exit program when they leave your organization, and that data is geo-replicated. Again, I'll cover that in a second. Once that deletion has happened, it can either be a soft delete, in which case that data can be found in the recycle bin and then brought back, which is what many of you will be doing today. You also have a hard delete, and a hard delete is permanent, meaning that information is purged from the database and only a backup will be able to get that data back. Retention policies. Now, these can be difficult to manage across an organization. They are built into the product, but you need to understand the implication of making a change and what that's going to do to your retention. So in the case of a catastrophic issue, you need to be able to roll back some or all of your data back to a specific point in time. Internal and external threats, often grouped together, very similar in nature, and Microsoft do a great job of protecting their infrastructure. But you have staff with access to the files, the company data, and all these Teams links and everything else that they have access to. The platform has no idea whether it's an accidental deletion or a malicious attack. So again, shared responsibility model is something I'm going to touch on the next slide, but the people are the weakest link, and they always are. They are with all security systems. So it's unfortunate that people will, over time, click on a link or open a payload that's infected with a virus or a malicious attack. Legal and compliance. This is basically because you have to. You're in a market vertical that insists or requires that you protect your data. Some people will choose to protect their data, but others are effectively forced to protect it. So you may need to retrieve emails as part of a legal request. Again, Microsoft have litigation hold and retention, and that goes some way to preventing the loss of this data. But having the ability to recover and export that data as a PST file, which is one of the options, can really help you address these obligations you have from a compliance point of view. Managing Exchange on premises, something that, again, many people may still have access to and still use on a day-to-day basis, but there are still many businesses out there that have got Exchange servers, and they either need that protecting, in which case Microsoft, the Office 365 protection through Veeam can offer that, or you may be in a migration cycle of migrating from on-premises into Microsoft 365. So again, we can protect that. The software stack is able to protect that on-premises data and store that in an offsite location. And finally, Microsoft Teams, probably the most pervasive of all the applications in the Microsoft suite. It's used for everything from official meetings, document sharing, quick chats with colleagues, and the platform brings together all the services that are underpinned, so SharePoint and OneDrive for Business. Above that, you've got settings, configuration, membership, and all this data needs to be protected and to be recovered. Collaboration within organizations or across organizations often result in projects. Those projects need to be protected and backed up for a variety of different reasons. Again, I've said about compliance, or maybe just for your own systems within the organization. So you need to be able to archive these projects and protect them, and if required, bring them back at a future date. And finally, let's not forget about the people. The people that are protecting your data, if you're an organization with your own IT staff, they have a growing scope of responsibilities, data availability, management, and lots of other concerns that affect their day-to-day life. So you need a system that's not overly complex, and it needs to support their day-to-day job. So tailored backups, ease of recovery, restoration flexibility, delegation of restores, centralized management, and let's be honest, many people look at service providers to add that wrap so you can offload some of that workload to somebody else. That's exactly what Kavenco can offer. So as best practice, organizations need to offer that seamless, non-complex experience to their staff, but also to the IT admins. Right, if I can move on, please. So the shared responsibility model. As a cloud service provider, Microsoft employs this model, as do all public cloud providers. And these models are a cooperation of both parties, the provider and the consumer. So this term is used to describe the division of responsibility. Customers need to understand what they are doing and where they are placing their data. But you're placing on a platform that's actually operated by somebody else. The click-through agreement, which is always accepted and very rarely read, specifically states which party is responsible for which element. This model is designed to draw a line in the sand and clearly identify who is responsible for what and highlight the areas that you need to cover. So using 365 as an example, this product does not offer an inbuilt comprehensive backup solution. Data can be moved into and out of the recycle bin, but this is not a backup tool. It doesn't offer the compliance and simplicity of the Veeam backup for 365. The common misunderstanding falls between Microsoft's perceived responsibility, because they operate the platform, and the user's responsibility of protecting their long-term data. I mentioned about Microsoft geo-redundancy. It's great. When you make a function, when you have an email arrive in your inbox, or you delete a file from your Microsoft 365 account, it's geo-synchronized. But it's often a mistake to think that this is backup. Backup is a copy of that historical data stored in another location. So you can restore it as and when required. The disadvantage of geolocation is that when you do deletion, it's deleted from everywhere. And if that's a hard deletion, I've mentioned already, again, it's purged from the database and it's gone from everywhere. And many people adopt 365 without understanding fully what the implications are of these systems that are supporting that platform. Right, just move on. So Veeam's recently published our updated data protection trends and insight report. It's been running for 3 years now. The poll that we approached, the number of people, is over 3,400 respondents now across 28 countries. And almost all of those respondents are for companies greater than 1,000 staff. So it gives us great insight. We can look back at historical data protection approaches, record and identify macro trends, digital transformation and modernization across these many countries and many industries, and also downtime, data loss, and any gaps that we see in the industry. So the particular data set we're looking at the moment on screen highlights that over a 2-year period, Microsoft 365 users have moved away from the built-in capabilities, down from 2/3 to around about 47%, and over to third-party backup vendors to provide that extra layer of security. The built-in protection solution is not sufficient. As a consequence, the number of organizations protecting their 365 data is growing significantly. Yet we still see a significant number of users not backing up their data. Of all the currently protected 365 mailboxes globally, Veeam's been the chosen product for around about half of these, either directly or via a service provider. Okay, look at the next slide. So again, this data protection report has driven focus behind the ability to archive, or the requirement to archive data for a long period of time. So this chart's come from our compliance questions about what duration you need to be asked to retain data for. Software as a service platforms are tending to require data retaining or retention for a longer period of time. This is probably a reflection of the type of mission critical data that's stored there, whether it be Office 365 and also other products that are available offering that software as a service. This retention period is significantly different to traditional backup, which tends to fade off before 5 years. But Office 365, as an example, extends that from 5 years to 10 years and then forever. And this does bring into some economic factors. Over time, storage costs will begin to outweigh some of the other components. So any methods to help address this are really welcome. Various options are available. For example, service providers can leverage their own cost-effective storage platforms, but there is an alternative that Veeam can offer. We've now extended our 3-2-1 rule to cover Microsoft 365 data. A new backup copy job allows you to take your data and send it to cold storage, such as Azure Storage Archive, Amazon S3 Glacier, or Amazon S3 Glacier Deep Archive. It's flexible scheduling options to be able to move that data. But again, this is an alternative maybe to what's offered by Kavenko. Next slide, please. I just want to close off my section with some of the major features that have been added into the new version 6 of the product. And this one is the self-service portal. So this is a web-based self-service portal, which allows an end user, an individual end user, or a help desk person to securely restore Exchange, SharePoint, and OneDrive data from any location and restore it back into where it came from. This will cover many of the accidental deletions that happen and those common mistakes that people make on a day-to-day basis. End users restoring their own emails and documents will lift some of that pressure from some of the other departments, maybe the IT department, or even call out to a service provider. So the simple GUI that we've created allows individual user restore and provides direct access for those backups back into the live data. There are effectively two ways of restoring: a self-service restore for an end user, so as I said, an individual restore, and a new feature called a restore operator, which is designed for service desks and help desks, or maybe a team leader, which allow them to have a set of users they are responsible for and be able to restore data on their behalf. So we feel that this is going to be a great key feature in the future as it gets rolled out in more locations. So I'm just move on to the last slide. What does Veeam Backup for Microsoft Office 365 provide? So in partnership with service providers, Kavenko, it eliminates that risk, that loss of data, Microsoft Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams, and together allows you to protect and restore your data in a really simple way. Allows you to meet legal and compliance requirements for both long-term and short-term data retention. So it mitigates that data loss, minimizes misconfiguration of the built-in rules, can manage that data sprawl, helps you meet SLAs, and allows you to recover from any situation. So with that, I'd like to hand back to Dave Collins from Kavenko, who can carry on this presentation.
Thank you, Nick. Thanks for that. I'm just going to talk a little bit about our Veeam backup for Microsoft Office 365 managed service. I'll apologise for my voice in advance because I'm struggling a little bit at home. So fully
Hi, Dave. I think your audio is breaking up.
Shame.
Hi, sorry about that, everybody. Looks like Dave Collins is having some issues with his.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, that's better.
All right, I dropped out, so I apologise for that. I'm going to stop my video just to
Dave, sorry, I don't think it's improved it, unfortunately.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I may have to forgo this, so apologies for that. Based in our UK data centres, did you get that far?
If you can start from the beginning.
Okay, so our fully managed backup for Microsoft 365 service
Dave, it's still bad, unfortunately.
Any better?
Okay, yeah. Try again.
Breaking up.
Yeah, no, it's still breaking up, unfortunately. What I'll do is I'll see if I can run through the slides for you. Certainly the ones that the ones I can manage. Sorry about that, everybody. Unfortunately, we've had Dave Collins is not been he's been sick with COVID and stuff and working from home. So unfortunately, a little bit challenging from a broadband perspective. So apologies for that. I'll run you through the slides. So Kavenka 365, we offer a fully managed backup service for Microsoft 365 users. Essentially, that's taking the backup from the Microsoft platform directly to the Kavenka platform and essentially backing that up and providing an access to your data so that you can restore your files to or back and recover those files. That cloud is basically based across our 2 data centers in the UK. You can utilize the Veeam Explorers via a secure Cloud Connect connection to access that data. From a cost perspective, there is no real cost for you to run the service other than the service charges. The benefits are that there is no egress ingress charge. You don't have to run an infrastructure locally, manage that, patch that. There's no hidden charges for the service, and essentially the service is a flat per user charge and a storage cost for the service. Dave, if you Okay, brilliant. From a licensing perspective, one Microsoft licensed user is what we would license from a Veeam backup for Microsoft Office 365 perspective. The licensing includes protection for Exchange, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Teams. The shared mailboxes are protected at no additional charge. So if you've got groups of mailboxes, there is not a license charge for those because it's based on the per user, and those users will be part of potentially those shared mailboxes. And we offer some special licensing SKUs for the education sector. This licensing is actually provided by Coventco through our volume rental agreement with Veeam. So we've got, you know, a huge agreement with Veeam where we're buying thousands of points. And so when you subscribe to our service, you get the license with that service as well as the cloud storage with that service as well. Next slide, please. We have a very nice sizing tool, which you can take a note of if you ever wanted to find out what your consumption is inside of Microsoft 365. You can access the, you can run this calculator or click on through this link, sign into your Microsoft 365 account, and it takes you into the your usage of cloud storage within Microsoft 365 platform. You can then utilize different settings within that platform to determine what retention period you want to set, to give you an indication of how much cloud storage you will be consuming over a period of time. This is what it looks like once you've signed in using that link. So you can see there, it shows you what the primary mailbox size is, archive mailbox, OneDrive data, SharePoint data. You can then set the retention policy underneath that for X number of years, and number of Teams users, for example, there. So it's a sizing tool that helps you look at what capacity you may require from a storage perspective on our side if you wanted to utilize the backup service. This is further down. So once you've completed those metrics, it then provides you with the results. So your total repository size, object storage size, various API calls, infrastructure sizing, and you've got that repository trend graph there that sort of shows you what that data utilization or storage utilization, sorry, should I say, would look like over a longer period of time. Next slide, please. From an implementation perspective, our team, as part of the service, will work with your IT team to create a backup account using multi-factor authentication. Worker accounts, applications for larger environments are deployed. So if you've got a really large Microsoft 365 estate, then we can operate multiple worker accounts that provide greater bandwidth for jobs to come through. The first full backup, we will work with you to ensure that the first full backup is undertaken. We will obviously remediate any issues with that. And then it's essentially a daily, forever incremental backup of your data, which we monitor on a daily basis. And if we find that data isn't coming across for whatever reason, we will escalate that. We will then work with your teams to remediate that as well. So from an implementation point of view, we are very much holding your hand right the way through the process, if not doing it for you, because we obviously want it to work the first time right all the time. Okay, next slide, please. So on our roadmap for this service, we've got the self-service portal. So the self-service portal will be available in the next release of the product. So that's due in Q3 this year. It's currently going through test. Integration with Veeam 1 is also on the horizon as well. So for those people who use Veeam and Veeam 1 for monitoring and analytics, capacity planning, they will be able to utilize Veeam 1 to look and manage their Veeam backup for Microsoft 365 estate. Improved license management with service provider console. So the service provider console essentially is what we use as a service provider to support and manage our Veeam cloud-based customers, and the enhancements within the service provider console are going to lead to improvements in license management. Next. Oh, okay. So we've hit questions already. If there are any questions, please feel free to put those through now.
Yeah, hi, Gerdip. There's I've not seen any questions come through at the moment, but if I say we can hold on the line for the next couple of minutes and see if anyone's got any questions to ask.
Sure.
Maybe we've answered everyone's questions with that very thorough
quite
webinar.
possibly, yes. Here we go. Here's one. Is there any granularity as to what you can back up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess there's two sides to this story. So the Veeam product can back up, as I said, it's the inbox, the archive, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. So what the service provider community, can do and have done is then wrap that as a service rather than an individual product. So Kavenko have got this, as we've heard already, these years of experience, and they will deliver that product as a fully managed service to you. So it's entirely, it will be a conversation you as a consumer and the guys at Kavenko to actually decide on what is backed up, how long it's retained for. You can have various retention durations. You may choose or have a requirement that email is your most primary recovery item, but something like SharePoint and OneDrive may not be as high priority on your particular list, and you can vary the retention period and what is protected. We also support groups. So if there are AD groups that have been created, we can either include or exclude those groups. So again, it can be a really flexible process. That conversation will be had as part of that engagement with Kavenko.
Okay, I've got another question here. Are you able to make restores to alternative locations, i.e. not Microsoft, in the case that, for example, worst case scenario, Microsoft is not available?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. I think the answer is that no, we don't provide a platform that would allow an Outlook client to be able to access that offline data. The purpose of the Veeam 365 backup is to actually take a copy of it outside of that platform. If you look historically over the last 2 or 3 years, there have been occasions, the odd weekend, the odd day, when that platform has been unavailable in particular regions, but it has come back online. I think there's a much bigger conversation to be had about the geo redundancy and about how often those platforms are available. They do, I think it's 4 nines that Microsoft certify their platform for. So yeah, I guess the answer is that no, there isn't a way of doing it. We can export that data as a PST file, but it is a static.
I think that's where the client is. What the client is referring to is more talking about the files and folders than Exchange itself. So I guess we can pull out to PSD and put whatever.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, sorry, I missed that last update. So if you're talking about the files and folders, they can be exported.
Yeah.
So whether that's an attachment to an email or files out of SharePoint, for instance, or OneDrive, they can be exported. So in the event of unavailability, they can be exported out of the backup and point in time. So you may have multiple revisions of that same document. We'll be able to, the software allows you to go back in time and find the one that you require.
Okay, excellent. One more. How long can you retain data for?
again, a conversation between the customer and you as a service provider. Effectively, you can retain data. I'm going to use that term forever. It's entirely up to that, you know, that negotiation between the. It's down to requirements. So typically, everybody will want everything forever. But often there are business requirements that will deem certain. I mentioned already about email. Maybe email being specifically pointed out as something that you do need to retain for a specific length of time, whereas something like OneDrive or SharePoint maybe for a shorter period. So again, that definitely comes as a conversation between the customer consuming the service and Kavenko offering that service. But
yeah, I mean, just to add to Nick's comments there, I mean, we've got customers who started with everything and found that, you know, their cloud storage has grown because they're protecting everything on a day-to-day basis, and then have realized that actually, you know, they'll set certain policies, you know, or set a hard line of retention that then reduces that storage. So anybody thinking about doing this and wanting to protect everything, obviously there's whilst you can do that, there's a you know, an impact on the storage that you then consume, which then impacts cost. So it's something that, you know, again, we can help work with you to look at what your retention policies are from a compliance perspective, legal perspective, regulatory perspective if required, and you know, set a sensible retention policy for the data. Okay.
I guess as a final comment from me, there is a fantastic search function as part of the product, which does allow you to do compare with production, and that's very, very useful if you're looking at doing a recovery. So you can actually compare the data that's backed up with what is live, and maybe just restore the missing or the out of date data.
Sure.
Again, that's always critical in case there's been I'm going to throw that ransomware word in there, where if there's some corruption of data, it might actually be that the latest version is not the one you need. You do actually need another one, an older one to overwrite. I think we've covered pretty much all the aspects of the software in those last sort of 20 or 30 minutes now.
Perfect. Thank you, Nick. Much appreciated. I don't think I can see any more questions from the audience. No. Okay, so let's move on to, okay, thank you from me. So yes, thank you very much for attending today's session. Apologies for the issue that we had with the quality of the connection, but unfortunately in these times that's what we've kind of become used to. If you'd like to reach out to us to discuss any requirements or discuss this on a one-to-one basis further, then please do so. My details are on the screen there. I and my team will hopefully reach out to you all just to get some feedback and understand, you know, if you have any questions or would like to progress this further. There's an exclusive discount code available there for attendees as well, if you're not already using the service, that you can apply if you are interested in taking it forward. And finally, from as a thank you for interrupting your lunch hour, there's a Just Eat voucher which will be circulated to everybody who's attended the session today as a thank you from us and Veeam. So again, thank you very much for your time. We hope to see you again on a next webinar, which we will communicate to you at some stage in the future. Thank you. Have a nice day.